Today we're doing something a little different. We're taking traditional American holiday food and turning it into a classic Dutch snack. Hi, I'm Toine and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I focus on cooking foods from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies such as Indonesia. We hosted a Friendsgiving this week, and as usual, I made way too much food, so our fridge is filled with leftovers. And there's only so many turkey sandwiches I can eat. So I decided to turn the turkey leftovers into a Dutch snack, kroketten. Let's get started. To make the roux and the gravy, you will need 1 liter of turkey stock, 120 grams of all-purpose flour, 120 grams of unsalted butter, 1 clove of garlic, 2 tablespoons of sage, 2 tablespoons of rosemary, and 2 tablespoons of thyme. Additionally, for the filling, you will need 600 grams of leftover turkey, 60 milliliters of water, 1 tablespoon of powdered gelatin, 1 teaspoon of mustard, 1 teaspoon of vinegar, a tablespoon of chopped sage, a tablespoon of thyme, and salt and pepper to taste. For the breading, you will need 300 grams of breadcrumbs, 4 eggs, and 1 tablespoon of milk. You will also need oil for frying. Before I make the roux, I'm going to infuse the butter with my herbs and my garlic. So to melt the butter, I have my burner on medium heat. Once the butter is all melted, I'm going to lower the heat because I don't want to brown the butter quite yet. I am using a large saucepan because not only am I using it to infuse the butter, but I'll also make the roux and then the fillings for the kroketten in here. The butter is melted. I'm going to lower my heat to the lowest setting so that it doesn't boil. And I'm now going to add my garlic, which I just kind of smashed. I didn't even chop it. My thyme, rosemary, and sage. I probably should have done it in the other order. Sage, rosemary, and thyme. Stir it around. It smells so good. You can smell the garlic, you can smell the herbs. I didn't chop these herbs very finely because I'm going to strain it out of the butter when it's done infusing. I'm going to let this sit at a low temperature for at least an hour. The herbs have been infusing for a little over an hour. I'm now going to strain them out. Now we're going to make the roux. I have added the melted butter back into my pan and I'm going to set my burner to a medium heat. I'm going to add a little bit of flour and then stir it through. You want to stir it until you don't see any lumps anymore before you add more of the flour. Okay, add a little bit more. And we're stirring. This is not a recipe where you can just set it and forget it. This takes active participation. The key to making a good roux is to make sure that you use both butter and flour at the same weight. So that's why I don't use volumetric measurements for this. You want to have the same amount of weight between the butter and the flour. Okay. Last little bit of flour being stirred through it. So what we want to do now is cook it for 10 minutes. Normally when you make kroketten, you keep a very blonde roux, very light colored roux. But for these, I like to make it a little bit of a darker roux. So we're going to continue stirring and cooking this for 10 minutes. And that's when we will start adding the broth. By cooking it for 10 minutes, you're also making sure that you will not have any raw flour flavor in the gravy. I'm going to continue cooking this, stirring the entire time, and I'll see you when I'm done. Okay, I'm done cooking and stirring this. I did lower my burner while I was doing it because it was heating up a little bit too quickly. Now that it's done, it's a nice light caramel color. It's exactly the color we're looking for. You don't want to go much darker because the darker your roux, the less binding power it has. I'm going to add turkey broth to this. Just 1 ladle at a time. And stir it through. Now this is turkey broth we made ourselves with the bones from the turkey we cooked and some vegetables, some aromatics, and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. As you can see, this is now all coming together. And I'm going to add more of our broth. And start stirring again. Okay, everything is incorporated. Don't make a mess like I do. And don't stir vigorously until a lot of the liquid is starting to get incorporated. Otherwise it's splashing all over the place. We're going to continue adding the stock until the sauce is thin enough that it coats the back of your spoon. It should take the full liter. Sometimes you may need a little less, and sometimes it is still a little bit too thick after the liter. It really depends on your flour and your butter and how dark it got. So it's okay to add a little bit extra water if it's too thick, or to add a little less stock if you get to that consistency sooner. But as you can see, it is nice and smooth, no lumps. And I'm going to add some more. Make sure you scrape off any flour that's on the sides of the pan. Otherwise, you may end up with those pieces through your roux when you add the turkey. So just keep scraping the sides of the pan. It looks like I don't have to use all of the stock. I increased the heat, and now I'm going to bring it to a boil, stirring constantly, because you don't want any of this to bake onto the bottom of your pan. The sauce is coating the back of a spoon, and when I draw a line through it, it is not closing back in. So that is the right consistency. And now I'm just waiting for it to come to a boil, and then I'll lower the heat and let it simmer for a few minutes. We can see the little bubbles coming up, so that's a sign it is now boiling. I'm going to turn down the heat and let it simmer for 5 minutes or so. And while it's simmering, you don't have to stir it quite as vigorously and continuously as I was until now. The gravy has been simmering. While that was happening, I chopped up the turkey into small little pieces, as well as the thyme and the sage. The sage is a little bit bigger pieces. I like having a little bite of sage in these kroketten. So now it's time to season the gravy. We're going to go with our teaspoon of vinegar and just a little bit of brightness, as well as mustard. If you don't like mustard, you can use a little bit more vinegar, but you really do not taste the mustard taste, the mustard flavor, I should say, once this is all mixed through. So I'm just stirring that through until I don't see any of the yellow mustard streaks anymore. We're going to add a pinch of sugar, I almost said a pinch of salt, a few cracks of black pepper. I prefer black pepper over white pepper. Stir this through, and just remember that the turkey does have seasoning, right? So if your turkey is salty, you probably don't want to add too much salt to your gravy. If your turkey is kind of low on salt or pepper, you can compensate that. You can compensate for that by adding a little bit more to the gravy. Let's give it a try. Turkey flavor, for sure. Those herbs come through, but it does need a little bit more salt and definitely some more pepper. Okay, let's test our seasoning. That's perfect. Okay, now it's time to mix through the turkey. Also try to make sure there is no skin in here, because it becomes chewy in the kroket, and that's not fun to eat. And now the thyme and the sage. I'm going to turn the heat off now, and now I'm going to clean this up, and then I'll be back to bloom the gelatin. I have room temperature water. I'm going to add my tablespoon of gelatin on top of it. And then this is going to sit for about 10 minutes to bloom and fully absorb. If you want to, you can stir it to speed it up a little bit. While the gelatin is blooming, I am continuously stirring the filling, even though it's off the heat, because that will help it cool down a little bit faster. I am looking for this mixture to be between 48 and 60 degrees Celsius or 120 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the temperature at which we can add the gelatin, that it will melt, but it won't break the gelatin. And then I'll check the temperature with my instant read thermometer. I'll see you when it's done. My gelatin has finished blooming. Let's take a look at what the temperature of the roux is. 125. So now I'm going to add the gelatin and we're going to stir it through here. The warmth of the sauce will melt the gelatin. If for some reason you end up seeing little blobs of gelatin, you can reheat this over really low heat until all the gelatin is melted. But in this particular case, it melted almost instantly. Just make sure it's well mixed through. I'm going to find a shallow baking dish to put this in to cool it down before we can start rolling croquette. I have a shallow glass dish here and I'm going to pour the croquette filling in it. Spread it out evenly. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap directly on top of the filling. That way it doesn't form a skin, and it's going in the fridge for at least 3 hours, preferably overnight, until it is completely cooled down. The croquette filling has completely cooled down in the fridge, and I've prepared my station for shaping the croquette. I have put my breadcrumbs in a shallow dish, my eggs beaten with the milk in another dish, and I have a cookie sheet with parchment paper. And then I have a scoop to kind of measure out equal sizes of all the croquette. I'm going to take that ball of filling and shape it. We're going to shape it into a log and then roll it through the breading. And now I'm going to cover it with the egg wash and roll it through the breadcrumbs. Make sure it's well covered, and I am making a mess, and put it on the cookie sheet with parchment paper. I will continue shaping the rest of the croquette, and then we'll be back to see how many it makes. I have finished shaping all the croquette and it made a total of 16. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap, put it in the fridge for at least an hour, and then we'll be back to fry them. I'm heating up my oil in a Dutch oven. I am using avocado oil. You can use any neutral oil that has a high smoke point. We're going to heat it up to 350 degrees. My croquette are ready. I have a cookie sheet lined with a paper towel and a rack on top, and a spider for removing the croquette from the oil. So now we just wait for the temperature to hit. We're at 347 degrees. We're almost ready to start frying. Okay, the oil is at temperature. Don't put too many croquette in at once because you don't want to overcrowd the pot. So I'm going to do 3 croquette at a time. And we're going for color because everything on the inside is already fully cooked. You want them to be golden brown. When you're adding oil to your pan, leave enough room so that when you add the croquette, it doesn't spill over. The croquette have been frying for 3 minutes. Let's take a look at the color. That's a nice golden brown. So let's make sure that most of the oil drips back into the pan and take them out. I'm now going to wait until the oil comes back to temperature, and then I'll continue frying the rest. The last one is finished frying, so let's take it out of the oil and put it on the rack. Let me clear some of this off the counter and I'll be back to taste them. Let's take a look at the inside. Nice and soft, richly filled with lots of turkey, and it has all those familiar Thanksgiving smells. Eet Smakelijk. This is a great way of using up some of your leftover turkey. I can see this even on a little bolletje as a broodje kroket, or just with some French fries. If you want to offset a little bit of the richness of this, some cranberry sauce would go really well with this. Or if you're more of a traditionalist for kroketten, mustard will be fine as well. The outside is nice and crunchy, which is a great contrast to the rich and smooth inside. And then of course that turkey flavor. I had a piece with a little bit of sage, and that really enhances the flavor of the gravy on the inside. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share it with your friends. If you have any questions about the recipe, please post them in the comments below. Normally I would say, if you have any memories of eating these, put them in the comments below, but this isn't a traditional Dutch dish. But I do hope that this is inspiration for you to use your leftover turkey from Thanksgiving this year. The written recipe is on my website, toineskitchen.com, in both imperial and metric measurements, and you can find me on social media as well. If you make turkey kroketten, please take a photo and post it on Instagram with the hashtag Toineskitchen. I'll share it in my story and on my website. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.